Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be making this giant wooden sign for a local wedding venue. Now in my Cricut Design Space, I already have this designed. I've gone back and forth with the owner and this is what we've landed on. As you can see, it's a very large sign. It's over 70 inches long. And I have just added in these wood blanks so I can see the space that I have to work with. Now we are going to be doing two layers. The first layer is going to be these mountains, and then the second layer is going to be the Genesee of Colorado part in black. So since this is way too large to cut on our Cricut machine, we are going to need to cut these in pieces that are 11.5 by 23.5 inches long. So I'm going to do the mountains first. All I do is add in a square, I unlock it to pull it out into a rectangle. That is the size of the 11.5 by 23.5. Now that I have that size dried, I am going to move them to the back of my mountains just so I can see how the mountains will look cut out of that. And I also want it to make sense and easy for me to overlap on top of each other when I am actually painting this on our wood board. Now I'm just duplicating some of these so I can have them on hand. I'm just going to pull those off to the side so they are nearby whenever I need them. Now to slice this mountain out of this rectangle, you select the mountain and the rectangle and hit slice down on the bottom of the right hand corner, and that will slice out your image and basically turn that rectangle into your stencil. Now just repeat for the rest of the mountains until you have all of your stencil sections ready. And these mountains are going to be in 4 different sections. As you can see here, I went ahead and did the rest of them. You guys don't have to watch me do all that, but I do have the 4 section mountain parts ready, and I am going to go ahead and go down into my text part and start doing that. Now for this, I only need the 2 parts because it is under 12 inches high, and I think it's like 40 something inches long. This part is. So now that we have all of our sections ready to cut, we can go ahead and make our project. Now of course we are going to be using our 12 by 24 inch mats, the biggest ones that Cricut makes as of right now. We are going to have 6 different sections, so I'm just going to start cutting each one of those individually. Now you can use any color vinyl for this. I'm just using Oracal 651. I wanted to use the forest green so you guys could actually see the design, and when I piece it all together you'll get a good idea of how it is going to look even before I paint on the wood. So I am just going to lay my transfer paper over that and get that stencil all ready to lay out. And I'm going to do the same for each one, just so once I go outside to paint my wood, it's all there and ready. That whole step is done. Now I didn't do a very good job here. I usually drop it down in a U shape and it kind of just falls right on it without any bubbles, but I was just kind of in a hurry with this. I'm just going to put my transfer tape down and smooth out the edges. Now the middle part where all the green is doesn't really matter, but as long as there's no air bubbles around the actual cut part where we're going to be applying the paint, then that's perfectly fine. Now I'm outside with the board and all my pieces. I am going to kind of place them out and get the general idea of where they need to go, and then I am going to use the pencil to mark the places, the spot holders for those first mountain peaks, and then we are going to place that down and then do the rest from there. Now if it's not placed perfectly the first time, you can pick it up and move it around. It's not smoothed down yet or anything, so I can easily move it just to get it in that perfect position. Now once that is in position, I am going to take my little scraper to smooth down the edges, of course getting all the air bubbles out, especially near the blank part where I'm going to be adding the paint in. Now that my transfer tape is pulled off my vinyl, you can see there are a bunch of air bubbles in it. I am going to just go back over with the scraper to make sure I can get all of those out. Now just do the same with the rest of the stencils until you have them all placed. Of course, I have my little helper, but she gets to stay inside today. Just gonna make sure everything is really smoothed down before I do my first layer. Now we are going to take polycrylic. This is a satin finish. We are going to use this as a base layer before we put our actual paint on. That's because the first layer is the layer that bleeds, so this is clear. Just in case it does bleed, it will show the clear instead of the gray or the black later on. So I'm just going over this really roughly, almost trying to get it to bleed. Going over it kind of light-handed over the cracks, just because I don't want a bunch of this to pile up in the cracks because it does tend to yellow. Now I'm going to use my favorite chalk paint. I get this from Walmart. I am going to go over the dried layer of polycrylic with this. I basically am just getting a good coat of it on, and then I'm going back over it, going the same way as the grain of the wood, just so I can get that consistent look throughout. Now that our first layer is complete, I am ready to do the second layer. Now I usually just wait for the paint to dry, but this chalk paint dries so fast, by the time I was finished doing the first coat, I was ready to start the second. So I have done the whole second coat, and then once that dries, just about 15-20 minutes, then I peel off the rest of the vinyl that was left over. Now that we have our mountain part completed, we are ready to move on to our text. So for this I use the transparent just so I can have a better idea of how it's sitting on the boards, and I just wanted it to be super straight and level. So I thought this was a better option than using like the green vinyl I did before. Now before this, I did go over with the polycrylic just like I did on the mountains. I'm just not sure where that video went, but definitely do a layer, because if the black bleeds, you are going to be in trouble. So I've done a layer of polycrylic, and now I'm just going over this with the same brand chalk paint, just in the color ink. And with this, I'm just doing a very light hand, kind of going in the same direction as the vinyl's taking me. I'm not really being rough with this quite yet, just in case I do get a little bleed here or there. I'm just going over with the super light hand, but also going in the same direction as the grain of the wood. Now once that first layer is done, I'm going to go back over it one more time just to make sure it's got that consistent black all throughout. This chalk paint obviously is chalk paint, so it's going to look pretty chalky. So I'm going to do just a pretty heavy layer on the second layer just to make sure it looks really good. Now once that is dried, I am peeling off the transparent vinyl so we can see how our final design looks. Now I'm using my tweezers to help get the little pieces out that are in between the numbers and the letters, but I'm being super careful that I don't accidentally poke the wood or cause any damage to it. Now our design is on there. I think this turned out really great. I actually didn't have a single bleed in the gray or the black, so I was super pleased with this method. Now when I did pull up the vinyl, it did pull up a few slivers of the wood around this established year, so I'm just going in with a small brush and I am touching that up. Now once that has completely dried, I'm talking like a couple hours at least, this was actually the next day, I am going to go back over with the same polycrylic that we used before with the wide brush and a light hand, just do a very light coat of this and making sure that I get the sides as well. And like I said before, this does tend to yellow if a group of it gets bunched up somewhere, so I am going in between the cracks just to make sure there's not any excess around. Now any finish is going to bring out the natural colors of both the wood and the paint, so it does darken quite a bit once this is on, but I think once it dries it'll brighten back up. And we are just doing one coat of this since it's just going up on a wall. It's not like we're using this as a tabletop or something. So we are going to let this dry and we are complete with our project. Thank you everybody for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to click subscribe. I will see you soon.